What is going on, guys? My name is Stuber, and I'm here to break down this 11-game NBA slate on Draftkings and PrizePicks.com. If you guys are new here, welcome. If you guys are a returning viewer, welcome back. Hope you guys enjoyed your Thanksgiving break. I know I did. You know, burnout in this field is almost inevitable when you're doing it every single day. So taking 2 days off with Thursday having no NBA games really rejuvenated me. I'm feeling very good. Feel like we're about to start an absolute heater to end out this year of 2021. But yeah, if you guys haven't done so already, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and then comment anything down below. Doing all three of those things is the #1 way of supporting me. Really helps out the algorithm, helps get my work out to more people, and is completely free and takes you guys like 10 seconds to do at most. So if you guys could do that. Also, make sure to follow me over on Twitter. I know I don't tweet all that much, but I'm making a concerted effort to make my Twitter a lot more informational moving forward. So a lot of good plays, PrizePicks plays specifically, will be posted over on my Twitter. That is linked down below. And if you guys do want to join my Patreon and know what I'm playing on FanDuel, DraftKings, and PrizePicks every single day, you can join my Patreon linked down below in the description as well as the pinned comment. But let's just jump right into the slate. If you guys do want to follow me over on Twitter, it is at Stuber. Like I mentioned, it is linked down in the description below. But I'm really trying to grow my following over here, like we have been over on YouTube rather. But let's just jump into the first game of the slate between the Minnesota Timberwolves versus the Charlotte Hornets at 225 over under. The Hornets are currently 2.5 point favorites. The Timberwolves are going to be without Patrick Beverley, and then Josh Okogie is questionable. So Beverley ended up exiting last game early in the first quarter. And then Malik Beasley ended up replacing him, started the second half, and played 37.5 minutes. So as of right now, Malik Beasley is far and away the best value play on the slate. I'm expecting him to start in place of Patrick Beverley, and then gets the Charlotte Hornets, who are third in pace. The Timberwolves are already ninth in pace, so this is one of the best game environments on the entire slate. Hornets are also a bottom 10 defense, so really focusing in on this Minnesota team. Karl-Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, and Malik Beasley are all very good plays. Could all be core plays for you. Wouldn't play all three of the most expensive guys on this team, but you can get away with playing D'Angelo Russell, Towns, and Malik Beasley. Again, just a 2.5 point spread, with it being a 225 over under, which at this point this season, 225 over under is a very high over under, considering that how much the scoring is down this year. So really targeting in on D'Angelo Russell, Towns, and Malik Beasley from the Timberwolves. Move over to the Charlotte Hornets. Mason Plumlee is questionable. I'm assuming Mason Plumlee is going to be good to go here, but if he is to be out, PJ Washington did return last game. He would likely start in his place. He would be a pretty good play at 4,900. I know he only played one stint in the first half, but if Mason Plumlee were to be out, they would probably have to give him some minutes here. They do like to go small, so if you think that PJ Washington's minutes would be limited with Plumlee out, then guys like Kelly Oubre and Cody Martin could get extended run here. And then I do think that Terry Rozier is a tad bit too cheap. So as of right now, really just focusing in on Terry Rozier as my main bring back. LaMelo Ball, you know, his minutes have been up pretty significantly since he has complained about them, playing upwards of like 39-40 minutes. So if you guys really want to bring it back with somebody that's more on the expensive side, it's going to be LaMelo Ball over guys like Gordon Hayward and Miles Bridges for me. Move over to the Phoenix Suns versus the New York Knicks, a 216 over under. The Suns are currently 3.5 point favorites. The Suns are going to be without Dario Saric, Frank Kaminsky, Abdel Nader. They are all questionable. Frank Kaminsky and Dario Saric are out. Abdel Nader is questionable. Knicks are 25th in pace, so this is going to be a very slow team. The Suns are a slow team in their own right. The Knicks, contrary to last year, is a pretty poor defense. I'm not really considering anybody on this team. Kind of a middling game for me. So, you know, DeAndre Ayton, I guess, would be the only guy that I'm somewhat interested in. I think Mikal Bridges at 5,000 is a tad bit too cheap, but really not considering anybody from the Suns team. More of the same on the Knicks. The Knicks have Derrick Rose, Mitchell Robinson, and Taj Gibson, all that's questionable. So with this being the first game of the slate, or in the first time slots, of the slate. We're going to get this news well ahead of time. It's all dependent on news. If Derrick Rose is ruled out like he was last time, Kemba Walker would get a pretty significant boost. We would also see more minutes from Alec Burks and Emmanuel quickly. If Taj Gibson and Mitchell Robinson are ruled out and Nerlens Noel becomes in a good spot. But I'm not really considering anybody from this Knicks team as of right now. Of course, if there is a bunch of injuries, if all those questionable tags end up being ruled out, then I would have some more interest in the Knicks, the value side, that is. Move over to the Chicago Bulls versus the Orlando Magic at 212.5 over under. The Bulls are currently 8.5 point favorites. The Bulls are going to be without Patrick Williams. Nikola Vucevic returned last game and played 26 minutes. So with him being back, it really kills the value of these guys like DeRozan and Zach LaVine because they are priced up a bit more than they were before Vucevic was ruled out for an extended period of time. Now he's back and their prices still remain the same, so I'm not really interested in anybody here. Alex Caruso also back from his short absence, so yeah, not really considering anybody from that Chicago game. Chicago side, the Orlando Magic, they are going to be without Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz, Michael Carter-Williams, Etuan Moore, Jonathan Isaac, and then Terrence Ross is questionable. He was injured last game. The Bulls have the 9th best defense this year, but if Cole Anthony is out again, which he is, Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter Jr., Jalen Suggs, and then Franz Wagner seem a bit too cheap for me. Jalen Suggs absolutely running this team. There is some blowout risk here, especially with Vucevic back and how well the Bulls have been playing. And then without Cole Anthony, this offense really struggles to create any offense at all. So I don't mind Jalen Suggs at 5,200 and Wendell Carter Jr. at 5,600. Those are probably the two guys that I'm focusing in on from the Orlando Magic side. Come over here to PrizePicks. Jalen Suggs is only at 23 fantasy points right here. I know there is some blowout risk here, but he leads his team in usage and assist percentage without Cole Anthony on the court. He's going to play big minutes while Cole Anthony is out as long as this game is competitive. So the over 23 fantasy points seems like almost a near lock for me. Absolutely love that here. If you keep watching my video, I'm going to keep throwing in some more plays so you guys can create your own power plays or flex plays if that's how you play over on PrizePicks. But we'll just keep moving forward and start giving out those plays. Move on to the Toronto Raptors versus the Indiana Pacers at 210 over under. The Pacers are currently 4-point favorites. The Raptors are going to be without Khem Birch. OG Anunoby is questionable. I'm expecting OG Anunoby to sit again. They said that he was going to be out for a while. Then they started giving him these Q tags, but it doesn't seem like he's anywhere close to playing. So I doubt that he is playing. He's more on the doubtful side for me. And without him and Khem Birch already ruled out, I'm expecting Precious Achiuwa to start just like he did last game without Birch and OG Anunoby. He started last game and played 27.5 minutes. He's one of the best value plays at $4,100. He'll probably play even more because they do need his size against Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis, that jumbo front court, and they are already an undersized team. So they'll need to have guys like Precious Achiuwa out there, as well as Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam all at the same time to kind of match that size. So 4,100 for Precious Achiuwa, one of the best value plays on this slate. Move over to the Indiana Pacers side. TJ Warren is out, and then the only guy I'm interested in on this side is going to be Malcolm Brogdon. I think he's entirely too cheap at 7,500, especially with Caris LeVert. His role on this team is very, very iffy. I would not be the least bit surprised if he was traded before the deadline. He's been getting phased out of the offense and out off the team for the most part because his minutes are coming down very, very hard to guys like Keelan Martin, Justin Holiday, Chris Duarte. So without Caris LeVert on the court, that's more usage and assist opportunities for a guy like Malcolm Brogdon. Brogdon's playing nearly 40 minutes in regulation of these competitive games, and Vegas indicates this game will be close, only a 4-point spread as of right now. So Malcolm Brogdon probably going to be a core piece for me. Move over to the Atlanta Hawks versus the Memphis Grizzlies. One of the best game environments on the entire slate. A 226 over under. And the Grizzlies are only 1-point favorite. So a very, very close game. The Atlanta Hawks are going to be without Onyeka Okongwu, DeAndre Hunter, and then Bogdan Bogdanovic is questionable. It seems like Bogdan Bogdanovic is questionable nearly every game, but he plays almost every game. If he were to be ruled in, I think 4,700 is a very good price tag for him. And then if he's ruled out, Cam Reddish becomes one of the best plays on the entire slate. The Grizzlies have a 115.1 defensive rating so far this year, which is by far the worst in the entire NBA. So This Atlanta Hawks team gets an absolutely amazing spot right here. So I love guys like Trae Young, Clint Capella, and then Kevin Huerter should play big minutes here as the starter in replacement of DeAndre Hunter. And like I mentioned, if Bogdanovich is healthy, he's a good play. If he is out, then we get a lot of Cam Reddish. Then on the opposite side, the Memphis Grizzlies, they are going to be without Sam Merrill, and DeAnthony Melton is questionable. The Hawks are have the sixth worst defensive rating in the entire NBA in the worst half-court defense. So this Hawks defense is very, very bad, just like the Memphis Grizzlies. It should be a close, competitive game. It should be flying. It should be a fast-paced game. So I absolutely love Ja Morant today. Dylan Brooks, Jaren Jackson should be in good spots as well. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. should continue to see bigger minutes because he's playing pretty much all of his minutes at the 4 right now. And then Brandon Clark is really eating into Steven Adams. Brandon Clark actually has closed out the halves in each of the last 4 halves in each of the last 2 games. So Brandon Clark, an interesting tournament play at 3,500, but again, I'm really focusing in on guys like Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Dylan Brooks. Move over to the Washington Wizards versus the Oklahoma City Thunder at 206 over under. The Wizards are currently 7.5 point favorites. The Wizards are going to be without Thomas Bryant and Rui Hachimura are both questionable. Bradley Beal is a fine tournament option, but Oklahoma City has been playing pretty stout defense, believe it or not, so far this year. There is some blowout risk at 7.5 points, but remember this Thunder team was just pretty competitive with the Utah Jazz, so I'm not expecting a blowout here. If I'm getting to anybody on this Wizards team, it's going to be Bradley Beal. Just because I'm going to be likely playing some of these Oklahoma City Thunder guys, and if I'm playing some of the Thunder guys, I'm expecting this game to play close, so might as well bring it back with somebody. And in tournaments, I'll bring it back with Bradley Beal, but in cash games, I don't think you need to bring it back with any of these Wizards guys. On the Oklahoma City Thunder, they are going to be without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander yet again. The Wizards have had the 7th best defense so far this year, which is a lot different than what we've seen in years past. They've been playing very, very well so far this year. The Thunder are at home, so I do expect this game to stay somewhat in striking distance for them. Josh Giddey, $6,500 without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander so far this year at 22.4% usage rating, 14.6 total rebound percentage, 38.5 assist percentage while averaging 1.13 fantasy points per minute. Absolutely love Josh Giddey here at 6,500. And then Lou Dort, I mean, he clearly just has a much larger offensive role on this team without Shai on the court. He is absolutely chucking whenever he gets the opportunity. He's playing big minutes, and he's only $5,200. He should be a core play for you. He has guard and forward eligibility, so very, very easy to get him into your lineups. I think Darius Bazley and Jeremiah Robinson Earl are both secondary options, but are fine in cash plays given their prices. Move over to the Boston Celtics versus the San Antonio Spurs at 214.5 over under. The Boston Celtics are currently 3-point favorites. Robert Williams has already been ruled out. Josh Richardson is doubtful, and then Jaylen Brown is questionable. Jaylen Brown has been limited in his first 2 games since returning due to conditioning. He is questionable in this game due to conditioning. If he were to be ruled out, guys like Dennis Schroeder and Jason Tatum would become 2 of my favorite plays on the entire slate, so need to monitor the news on Jaylen Brown. Grant Williams started in place of Robert Williams last time. Looks like he would have played high 20s minutes if the game didn't blow out. Al Horford obviously gets a very big boost with no Robert Williams on the court, and that leads me to my second play over here on PrizePicks.com. It is going to be the over Al Horford 32 fantasy points. You can pair that with the Jalen Suggs, but I have another play in the same exact game that I'm going to take the over on as well. So if you want a 2-pick right now, it's Jalen Suggs over 23 fantasy points and the Al Horford over 32 fantasy points. Now, if you are playing over here, these lines do move pretty drastically throughout the day. So if you guys want to tail me, make sure to sign up and deposit using code Taylor, Taylor, for a 100% match bonus up to $100. I give away plays for free pretty much every day. So if you guys want to play over here, you guys can just tail me every single day. So those are my 2 plays as of right now. We have one more, so keep watching. It is on the opposite side of this game with the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs are going to be without Zach Collins, and then Devin Vassell and Doug McDermott are questionable. Jakob Poeltl was playing massive minutes to begin the year before he was injured, or got sick rather. And it looked like he was on pace to be back there where he was before that injury in the last game, before the game ended up blowing out. He ended up playing 29 minutes, but was on pace to play 34 minutes if the game didn't blow out. So if we're going to start seeing 34 plus minutes out of Jakob Poeltl again, $5,700 is way too cheap. You have to remember, we were paying like $7K plus for him not too long ago before his injury occurred. So $5,700 for Jakob Poeltl is an absolute smash play, one of my favorite point per dollar plays on the slate, and that is going to be my third favorite play on the slate. So on PricePick, it's going to be the over Jakob Poeltl, 29 fantasy points. He has averaged about 1.05 fantasy points per minute to begin the year. And if he's going to play 34 plus minutes in a positive matchup against just Al Horford, no Robert Williams, so a bit of a smaller lineup out of the Boston Celtics, this should be a very, very good spot for Jakob Poeltl to get the over. So the over Jakob Poeltl, 29 fantasy points, Al Horford 32 fantasy points, and Jalen Suggs 23 fantasy points. If you hit the over on all three of those guys and you power play it, you will 5x your money. So if you're depositing $100 for the first time, you'll get a 100% match bonus up to $100. You could throw $200, that $200, and turn it into $1,000. So technically, you turned $100 into $1,000. If you deposited for the first time using my code, but that's only if we hit. But I am feeling very, very strongly about that. I also don't mind DeJounte Murray. I think people are scared off of that price tag of him, but he's been paying it off pretty much every time that he gets the chance to play in a competitive game. That game should be close. Move over to the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Denver Nuggets at 214 over under. The Bucks are currently 3.5 point favorites. The Bucks are going to be without Brook Lopez, Dante DiVincenzo, Semi Ojeleye. Should be a close competitive game since it is only 3.5 points. I do expect Nikola Jokic to return to this game. Giannis Antetokounmpo, probably too expensive at $12,200. I like Jokic more for cheaper in the same exact game, so I'm probably not getting to Giannis. And then I think Drew Holiday at $6,800 is entirely too cheap. Most of the games that he's involved in end up being blowouts, so he doesn't get his full complement of minutes. But we saw a couple of games ago he played upwards of 39 minutes, so if this game is close, I'm expecting him to play mid to high 30s minutes. Denver has been good defensively, but $6,800, in a game that's going to be close, which just is pretty rare for the Bucks. I do like Drew Holiday quite a bit. Like his overs on PricePicks as well. Not as strong of a feeling as I do about the other three plays. Then on the Denver Nuggets side, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., PJ Dozier are all out. Bones Highland is doubtful, and then Nikola Jokic is questionable with that wrist injury. It looked like he was pretty close to returning in each of these last two games. They decided to rest him, and so he got multiple days off in a row because of Thanksgiving. So I'm expecting him to be back in this one. Obviously a tougher matchup against the Milwaukee Bucks, but without Brook Lopez and having Bobby Portis out there, they are somewhat undersized, and their interior defense isn't nearly as good with Bobby Portis out there as opposed to Brook Lopez. So this matchup really doesn't scare me all that much. You take Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. off the court since the beginning of last year. Nikola Jokic has a 35.5% usage rating, 20.8 total rebound percentage, 39.7 assist percentage, while averaging 1.79 fantasy points per minute. I think he is the best pay up option on the slate if he is healthy. Hopefully some other value ends up breaking so we can get up to him a bit more comfortably. If he were to be ruled out, guys like Jeff Green, JaMychal Green would get pretty considerable bumps. Move over to the New Orleans Pelicans versus the Utah Jazz at 217 over under. The Jazz are currently 12.5 point favorites. The Pelicans are going to be without Zion Williamson and Dalton Holmes. Devontae Graham returned last game, played 21 minutes before the game blew out. So that kills the value of guys like Tomas Satoransky and Kyra Lewis. Brandon Ingram, I suppose, is a bit underpriced, but this is one of the toughest matchups in the league. The Utah Jazz at home, severe blowout risk here. The Jazz themselves have Royce O'Neal as questionable. If he were to miss, guys like Joe Ingles and Rudy Gay would get a pretty big bump in playing time. The Pelicans have the 5th worst defense in the entire NBA, but pretty severe blowout risk here. If this game were to stay close, I would like guys like Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, and Jordan Clarkson, but they are relegated to strictly tournament options for me with how scared I am of that blowout occurring. Move over to the Portland Trailblazers versus the Golden State Warriors at 225 over under. The Warriors are currently 6-point favorites. Portland is going to be Anthony Simmons is questionable for Portland today. The Warriors have a 99.7 defensive rating so far this year, which is by far the best in the entire NBA. So it is a very tough matchup for the Portland Trailblazers. really focusing in on Damian Lillard and Norman Powell. CJ McCollum as well. I think with how close this game should play, with it only being a 6-point spread, which is pretty close for the Warriors, I think that these guys are going to play as big of minutes as they possibly can. So Norman Powell, $5,100. I think he sees 36, 38 minutes in this game. I think that is pretty cheap for him. And then I don't mind Damian Lillard up top at 9.8K. Move over to the Warriors. They are going to be without Klay Thompson, James Wiseman, and Andre Iguodala. I think this is a really good spot to get Steph Curry in. Obviously a very good matchup against the Portland Trailblazers. They have been a sieve on defense for years, pretty much. They brought in Chauncey Billups. Defense hasn't really improved all that much. Steph Curry really takes a step back in these games that blow out, which is most of the time for the Golden State Warriors. So in a game that's supposed to be competitive, we could see Steph Curry take on a much larger role when they're beating up these teams so badly. Guys like Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins can kind of get theirs, and Steph Curry doesn't need to do as much. But with this game supposedly supposed to be competitive, Curry at 11.4K is going to be very low owned, and I think is one of the best spend up options on the entire slate. And I would actually argue that if Nikola Jokic is ruled out, Curry could be the best spin-up option on the entire slate. I also think that Draymond Green at 6,700 is entirely too cheap. Matches this team very well against the Trailblazers, especially with them likely going small with Larry Nance Jr., which they have done a ton recently. Move over to the Sacramento Kings versus the Los Angeles Lakers, the last game of the slate. A 229 over-under, which is the highest on the slate. The Lakers are currently 7.5-point favorites. The Kings are going to have Richaun Holmes and Harrison Barnes both as questionable. Holmes missed last game. Alex Len ended up starting in his place. He played 27 minutes, was dealing with pretty bad foul trouble, and then the game blew out. Kind of like the starters all got benched in the third quarter. In the backup unit, kind of brought him back into the game. So the starters' minutes were cut back significantly. So if Richaun Holmes were to miss this game, I think Len would be a very good play at $3,000. Of course, this game starts 3.5 hours after lock, so it is pretty tough to gauge. Hopefully, we get some news throughout the day. And then if Harrison Barnes were to miss, Halliburton, Buddy Hield, Davion Mitchell would receive some extra minutes. The Lakers are the second in the league in pace, so a big pace-up spot. They are a bottom 10 defense as well. So, this is a very good matchup for the Kings, specifically De'Aaron Fox. I think De'Aaron Fox at $7,700 is way too cheap. I think him and Malcolm Brogdon and Drew Holiday in that range are three of the best point guard plays on the entire slate in that high 6Ks to high 7K range. But really need injury news. Then the Los Angeles Lakers, they are going to be without Kendrick Nunn, Trevor Ariza, and then LeBron James and Austin Reeves is questionable. LeBron James is questionable, but I'm fully expecting him to be active here. With him being active and Anthony Davis being back, this game them being back and healthy for the most part kills the value of everybody on this team. So I'm not interested in anybody, despite the Kings matchup being so good in this game environment being so good. They're just priced appropriately. Everybody's healthy. I'm not really interested in anybody here. But I will be live streaming an hour before lock at 5 p.m. Central Time. So hope to see you guys there. I will be breaking down all the latest breaking injury news as well as answering as many questions as I possibly can. But appreciate you guys being here. Best of luck tonight. And until next time, peace.